Tim, we recently met one Michiana family who decided they had to pick up and move out of the state of Indiana because of a new law. Senate Bill 480 bans all gender-affirming care for minors under the age of 18.
This is my son before he transitioned.
This Hoosier mom, who we'll call Jane, agreed to sit down with ABC 57 News, but only anonymously, for fear of outing her transgender son, who's 16 years old.
You're born who you are. So my kids were born in the wrong bodies.
She also has a trans daughter in her 20s, and the family decided last year they simply had to leave Indiana. You chose to move your family from one state to another. Why?
We moved to Michigan because Michigan is a state that's much more affirming.
Senate Bill 480 was approved in 2023 and after a legal battle just took effect in March, banning doctors from helping minors go through sex change treatments, exactly what Jane's teenage son is doing.
They can't get their testosterone or their estrogen or their puberty blockers or any of those things anymore. In fact, the doctors can't even recommend other doctors for the children to go see. So we had to find those medical professionals on our own.
Out of state?
Out of state. We can't even get my son's prescriptions filled in Indiana.
As originally drafted, that law would have also allowed the state to remove trans children from their homes if their parents violated it. While that provision was deleted by lawmakers just before the bill passed, it was frightening enough to force Jane and her husband to take action.
I needed to protect my child, needed to protect my family from having our child removed from us. So we immediately started looking for to move out of state. That was the home where our kids grew up, and so now we've had to, abandon that home, that life that we had, to be able to protect our family.
Because of a law passed in Indiana.
Because of a law passed in Indiana.
Jane shared these family photos over the years and says there were early signs two of her kids were not comfortable with their sex assigned at birth, starting with their oldest.
When she was about maybe 11 years old or so, she came to us and said, Mom, Dad, I think I'm a girl. And we told her, no, she wasn't. That was just, middle school is hard. You're experiencing hard things and weird feelings and things like that. And so we didn't think about it again until about 4 years ago when our then 12-year-old son came to us and said, Mom, Dad, I know I was born a girl, but I'm pretty sure I'm a boy. And so we became, quickly very supportive and very encouraging.
But for the first one, you weren't quite as accepting
Correct.
Right away.
Yeah, not at all. And part of that is just, that was 15, 16 years ago, so I don't feel like we understood what was happening. As parents, we had no choice but to accept what our kids came to us and told us, that they were trans, because we would rather have a trans child than be bearing a dead child.
You were concerned about suicide.
Absolutely.
What would you say to a family that said, I can't live in Indiana anymore, it's not good for my trans child, I'm moving to Michigan or Illinois?
Well, I would say, first of all, my heart goes out to you, and my heart goes out to your child, because your child is obviously gender confused. And first of all, they need help understanding that they can never be the opposite sex. And wherever you go, you are not only harming your own child, essentially, but you are harming any other child you're putting them in the same facility with, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Rhonda Miller is the head of Purple for Parents Indiana, an activist group based in Napanee.
We fight to protect children against the indoctrination and the sexual perversion in the schools.
Miller lobbies for anti-LGBTQ laws at the State House and has a very active presence online, trying to prevent the normalization of transsexuals in schools.
We don't see those kids as dangerous. We see those kids as victims, really, when it comes down to it, because they've been caught up in this whole gender ideology and the gender confusion that's taking place in our society. And parents are scared. They're getting caught up in being told that if you don't transition your child's going to commit suicide.
Miller says she even pulled her own son out of public school because of her concerns.
You have some of these sex ed programs that are supposed to be abstinence-based because we are an abstinent state, but it says they have to touch on abstinence. It's not required abstinence only. And so they're grooming children for all kinds of sex acts. You have to remove all sex ed programs from the schools because the schools should be teaching academics. Leave sex education up to the parents. That's where I would start.
When it comes to trans students using different pronouns and school facilities with other kids,
who's going to protect the girls in the locker room, in the bathrooms, when there's a boy in there who might have ulterior motives? The schools were trained that they had to open up their locker rooms, their bathrooms, and their overnight trips. They had to change the pronouns. If the children decided they wanted to be called something else because they had been encouraged and advocated for, they had to use the pronoun usage, and they didn't have to tell the parents.
What they're saying really is, I don't want to show that I value or respect you as a person, so I'm not going to use your chosen pronouns.
And for Jane, she says her 2 children are much happier now after transitioning to the opposite sex, and hopes everyone can become more accepting of people who happen to be different.
It's sad that people can't just leave trans kids alone. People are always scared of what they don't know. But meeting families and seeing that we're all just normal people trying to have our lives and not have our lives disrupted and uprooted so that our child can feel safe and loved,